Welcome, everybody. It is Ask the Experts. We're so glad that you're tuning in with us live. As you know, every single night at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Thursday, we come to answer your questions. But before we get started, make sure you do what? You like, share, and subscribe. Let the community know that we're here today, or I should say during the day. It's topical, but in the evening, it's all about you. So, whatever you want to know, you need to post your question so that we can jump right in. In the meantime, as you know, every single time we come on here, we have to make the announcements because it is what so many people come to Couples Academy for. It's the last chance weekend, Valentine's Day weekend. It is. We got a couple slots left. I'm glad to report that people are trying to get in because they realize the power of that particular weekend. This year, for so many couples, is going to be very intentional. It's going to be very purposeful. We're not just coming together to celebrate a holiday for a day and go back to business as usual. We want to change and transform the quality of our lives. And so they're doing it by investing in their marriage in order to have something completely different. And let me just say, we don't just work with married couples. We do work with non-married couples as well. So we want to encourage you to do that. Also, Foundry and Unearthed started on last night. We still have people signing up. I know I missed the first session. Can I get in? There's still space if you're interested. So many people are. So all you need to do is reach out to us on couplesacademy.org, set up a discovery call, or text us, right? We've given you that number several times. When you text us, we can share the information with you so that you can get signed up and ready to go. All right, guys, we're waiting
There's only a couple slots left. Let's just make sure people know it's not a lot of room. So if you're going to do it, let's do it.
Sir, yes, sir.
I'm sorry. I'm in military mode today. Somebody got under my skin. Some of you are watching and you know who got under my skin.
We don't play in that men's group. It's real.
Nope.
It's really real. All right, guys. So maybe some of you are just hanging out today. You don't have any questions. You're here to see what other people's questions are. But if we don't have questions live, we will shut it down and enjoy the rest of the evening with our family. How about that? So I'm going to give you a 3, 2, 1 countdown. You got 3 minutes to go. In the meantime, what we're going to do, we'll go to a quick commercial, let you know about the last chance weekend, and then we will continue. So stay right here. You're watching Ask the Experts. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We have a couple of questions. We're going to jump back in, but that was the video promo for the last chance weekend. I'm looking at this camera instead of looking here because I got different things going on. But yes, last chance weekend, you can sign up. Just go to our website. All right, a couple questions. Kathy asked, how many people can be in the Unearthed and Foundry program? That's a very good question. I know that we are capping it at 20. We want to make sure that we keep them intimate and controllable. We want to build community. We're not trying to have a online convention with hundreds of people. And so once we reach a certain number, we may start another group a little bit later because we want to keep, the intimacy in a relationship. And to understand, we're forming a brotherhood. We're forming a fraternity of phenomenal men. That's what we're developing. Likewise, I can't speak for Danielle in terms of a specific number, but there may be a little bit of room. I think I can only speak for Foundry. I can get clarity from her sometime later. All right, let's go to another question. Sean says, how is sex viewed by men? Sex in your marriage versus an affair. I guess my question is, do they want what they see on porn or experienced in an affair? Jeff?
Well, I mean, I guess it's going to depend. There's a lot of context issues there. I mean, are people living in fantasy worlds or living in the real world? There's a lot of ifs there. I know for me, I couldn't treat my wife like a porn flick. That's just not who I am. I can't even see somebody wanting that from their wife, to be honest with you.
This is what I would say is it depends on the man, right? Because the reality is we're not all exactly the same and we're not all looking for the same thing. And interestingly enough, even though many affairs end in sex, that's not the main motivator for some. That's not the reason why the affair even began. When we talk about attractions, it's not always a physical or sexual attraction that initiates or prompts the affair. If it were, say, a one night stand, if it were a result of sexual compulsion, that's very physical or sexually oriented. If it was an emotional affair, if it was a colleague or somebody you frequently see and you crossed a line and developed a relationship, it may not have started off that way, but ended that way. So it's hard to say that all men want sex that's porn driven. That's not necessarily, and I'm not saying that you're suggesting that. But so what I would say is you have to, if you ask 10 different men, you may get 10 different answers. And some of them are going to be influenced by porn and looking to do with an affair partner what they would never do with their spouse because it's a different relationship. Like when you have a caring love for someone, you may engage in practices with someone you don't care about because it's just about what you're seeking to get, some sexual gratification, some new experience, whatever the case may be. But for others, that's not the case at all. So I think that's a man, that's just an individual thing to determine what they're looking for in the sexual experience. And I will say this, a lot of times the affair partner thinks that, oh, okay, so you must have liked their sex. There must have been something amazing and earth shattering about their sex that drove you there. And the truth is, it's not necessarily about what they did. It wasn't about the position. It wasn't about how amazing and orgasmic it was. It's really not
Connection.
that. Oftentimes, affairs are less about the sex and more about desirability. You got to remember, an affair is new. New is sexy, right? New is sexy. And oftentimes, we're searching for something new and something different. That's the attraction. Think about this. I'm going to just give you a couple of examples to make the point. Think about when you were younger, right? You were younger, high school age, college age, and you dated an older guy, not somebody your age. There was just like, oh my God, he's older. Like there was this intrigue about dating an older guy. And so was the sex necessarily different than a younger guy? But there was something about that. And there's something attractive and alluring about an affair. There's a heightened intensity, there's a heightened emotion, there's a heightened anticipation. And some of that has to do with the fact that it's naughty and it's wrong and I shouldn't do it, but yet something in me wants to do what I know I shouldn't do. And what if we get caught? Like there's a lot that goes into the intensity associated with the affair. And what we do is we make it synonymous with the sexual experience. And they're two completely different things. So I hope that kind of answers your question and gives you some clarity.
There's a thrill-seeking side to it, right? Definitely is that. There also has to deal with where you're at in your journey in your own life. You know, there emotionally and psychologically, the average human being on the planet, I think it's 90% of the population is about 13 or 14 years old, emotionally and psychologically. So the maturity level has something to do with it. For that other group that is maturing in different ways, their ability to handle that. And I know from for a fact I was 14 psychologically and emotionally when I fell into my emotional affair. And a lot of it had to do with connection, to be honest. It had to do with the fact that I was not connecting at home. And I felt like I was in a desert emotionally. And so the first person that smiled at me and made the right comments, and when I look back, it's probably someone I would never would have dealt with, but I felt a connection
Mm.
and I didn't feel alone for the very first time. And that was real. That's just reality. And that happens a lot within marriages that go dry, that go cold. People seek connections outside of the marriage. Some of those are secure and safe, but it's a dangerous playground.
Very, very true. Hey, Jeff, check your sound. There's a little bit of drag on your end, just in case. All right, we're going to go to another question. Good evening. Wanting to see how to improve intimacy after an affair. My husband is still having a hard time with being emotionally intimate. Number one, what I would say to give you a deep dive, comprehensive unpacking of that, we did a 4 hour masterclass called uh, what is it? Sex After Betrayal, and you can find that by going to our website, couplesacademy.org. I would encourage you to watch it together because we talk about the struggles that people have getting things back on track and back in alignment once there's been an affair, and how do you sexually and emotionally connect again. So I would certainly recommend that. But intimacy, when we talk about intimacy, I always ask, well, what do you mean when you say that? Because there's a spiritual intimacy, an emotional intimacy, an intellectual intimacy, as well as a physical or sexual intimacy. And while you may be connected in one area, you may be disconnected in the other. But I think at the end of the day, it's about that emotional connection and the spiritual connection. And that kind of leads to those other areas. And so it requires vulnerability, it requires heightening and increasing your ability to effectively communicate. I think a lot of people are shut down. They have walls up. There's fears. There's all types of things that are going on internally, which prevents them from being able to connect externally with their spouse. So not only is it the struggle in the relational dynamic, probably more often than not, it's an internal struggle that one has within him or herself that causes the challenge. And so I don't know if you guys are going to counseling, within an individual counseling, couples counseling, whatever it may be, but whatever you're doing, do something different. Do something different if what you're doing isn't currently working. Okay. JG asks a question. Will the hurt my husband feels about family disconnect affect our recovery process? He hurt me, but I hurt him about the situation. If you remember, JG, her and her husband relocated to another area because of the affair, and now they are physically removed from family. And so the question is, will the relocation, which led to a disconnection, affect the recovery process? To be quite honest, I've asked this question several times, JG, and I've yet to hear an answer, or maybe I skipped over your answer. What is your recovery process? What are you actually currently doing? Are you going through a process guided by a counselor, or are you doing this on your own? I'm still waiting to hear that answer. Then I could effectively answer your question. But I will say it's possible that it could affect the recovery process, because if he's hurting, if this is something he feels like he was forced to do but didn't want to do, if he just complied, if he just compromised and went along with a demand or request that you made, then he's probably dealing with this whole family disconnect a lot harder than you may be. And so it requires that you address that issue. Remember, there's the affair issues, and then there are the relational issues. Some relational issues came prior to the affair, other relational issues are subsequent to the affair. They're all connected, but yet they're different. So you have to take time trying to figure out, what do we focus on in the moment that'll help us move further in this recovery process. Jeff.
I keep hearing some of these questions over and over and over again, and sometimes they're even by the same people. And I want to just set an idea, a bug in your ear, so to speak, to let you understand these we're functioning at multiple levels here. We start in instinct. This is where we're just reacting to the world. We're not being guided by anything else but what happens in the moment. When we graduate, we start studying, say we're reading books about our relationships and we're trying to learn how things work. That we call intellectual. We're actually seeking knowledge. We're seeking guidance through reading and learning, watching videos, those kinds of things. And that's a certain level, but that's still not it. The next level is discipline or discipleship, where we're actually putting into practice all of those things. We may be working with a coach or a counselor, and then you arrive at mastery. So I'm hearing people who are having instinctual reactions all the time on here and thinking that's going to work for them. They're asking for the guidance, but they're possibly not reading. I can tell some of them aren't, because they're asking the same questions over and over and over again. I can also tell that certain people are, this is not just the last person, I see this every single day when I'm on here. You can tell that some people are reading, but are they practicing and are they working with someone who can guide them, who has what they want and been where they've been? It's very important that you set a plan to try to reach marriage mastery by walking that ladder. And if you don't do it, I don't know how you can arrive unless you're seeking, something that actually works. There are systems that work. We can recover. We can heal. We can be happy in our marriages after something that was actually traumatic and horrible. I'm a living proof of that. And so is Hassani. We've
There it
all
is.
had disconnections from our wives.
Yep, that's very true. And you can recover. You can
Yes.
recover, but it requires work on your part. It requires dedication, stick to itivism, and a
Yes.
willingness to do whatever it takes to get through your situation. And it's not going
Absolutely.
to be easy. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be
Yes, sir.
difficult. But do you have the wherewithal to go through the journey to get to the other side? Another question. Oh, statement from Kathy McCoy. My husband came and picked up the book U Squared tonight. Kathy is in the Unearthed program. Her husband, Tyrone, is in Foundry, and she's referring to the homework assignment that we've given them in. And I'm glad to know that he came home to do that. And that's a step in the right direction toward your recovery. So awesome. Legendary lady, what techniques do you recommend when trying to stop a trigger from causing you to explode? All right, Jeffrey, this is your world. Lay it out.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, counting, backwards from 10, all that stuff works. It really does. I know it's cliche, but just breathing, uh, catch and release meditation works. This is where you're taking time, eyes closed, and you're just allowing thoughts to come into your head. And whatever thought comes there, you catch and release. If you practice that every day, you're going to learn to be able to drop things that you don't want in your life when they happen. The other thing is really, like, Hassani has a bunch of videos on managing and dealing with triggers. They're literally, I've seen at least 3 or 4 of them myself, but you have all kinds of information about triggers. I would definitely watch some of that. There's a whole concept that I really can't get into in here about how to remove a trigger and anchor yourself into something else. That way you're getting distance from your triggers. And part of that actually is embracing triggers, but I would do that in a safe environment. That's where you're actually forcing yourself into an environment of triggers and you're dealing with it.
Yeah, and I would also say once again, if you go to the website, we do have a 4-hour masterclass. We did another one on how to overcome emotional
Mhm.
triggers. And so, to be quite honest with you, with a lot of these questions, some of them may not serve you best because they're just a 2-minute soundbite answer to a very complex
That's the problem.
situation. And so that's why we dedicated hours to kind of walking you through techniques and strategies that will really help you overcome those triggers. So hopefully you'll go to the website and take a look at that. Here's another question from Cali Power Couple. Now I know who you are, my family. What is your advice for a betrayed spouse who still struggles greatly with trust issues and sexual intimacy issues? The unfaithful spouse has exhibited anger, rage in the past, but is doing work. So there's a lot there. We're talking about trust issues and sexual intimacy issues. You've heard us say probably that trust is lost in buckets but gained in drops. So that's more of a long-term process, longer-term process than other areas in the recovery process, but it requires a willingness from both. So the one who's been unfaithful has to operate in integrity and has to be consistent. Consistency is key. You have to be consistent in doing the right thing again and again and again till it becomes normal, till it becomes easy, till it becomes habitual, till it becomes instinctual. It just becomes a part of who and how they function. But for you, as the betrayed spouse, you can't live in the past. You can't live in the pit of your pain. You can't continue to review and reminisce and ruminate over what happened in the past because it keeps you from being able to trust in the here and now. So there's got to be a willingness on your part to step beyond your comfort zone, opening up your heart and mind, and opening up your ability to believe and allowing him to prove himself. See, those two things coming together allow you to begin to restore trust. In terms of sexual issues, sexual intimacy issues, that's number one, a complexity in terms, I don't know what area of sexual intimacy you may be struggling with. But once again, that masterclass kind of walks you through how to do that. We've talked about this before. Some go into sexual overdrive where they're having sex every single day, 2-3 times a day, because they may be using sex to fulfill a need that's temporal, it can't be fulfilled. Or they go into a sexual drought and now they're asexual and there's no connection whatsoever. Or they have sex sparingly. And so sex is a physical manifestation of the emotional intimacy that needs to be developed first. Because for many betrayed spouses, this is about feeling safe and secure. And if I don't feel safe and secure, and I can't trust you with my heart, it's hard to give you my body because then I feel like I'm showing up sacrificially and doing something that works against my very wiring. And so that's why working with a therapist, someone who possibly is a sexual therapist, working through a program, working through things will help you get to a better place. So hopefully that answers that question. Jeff, there's another question here. How do you keep from stonewalling in your marriage? Hit it, Jeff.
In all honesty, stop stonewalling. Like, you have to pull down your walls in order to create connection. Like, we keep saying, this is something that really, I understand everyone is scared to get hurt. That's the reason why the walls go up. We're scared that if we become vulnerable again, that we're going to become betrayed again. But I'm going to tell you right now, if the walls stay up too long, the likelihood of recidivism is even higher. If you're staying, you're staying. And you've got to eventually, this is why we always encourage people to get help. Because bringing those walls down can be difficult. But if you don't restore connection, how do you move forward? Like, how do you drop the wall? You drop the wall. You force yourself. There is no courage without vulnerability. There's no courage without vulnerability. When I say that, that's even in the military sense. If there's a sniper on the roof and he's firing in the direction, someone has to expose themselves in order to go after him. They have to move themselves from safety in order to eliminate that threat. Well, there's a threat against a lot of your marriages right now. And someone has to step up and be willing to be vulnerable. I would suggest it's both of you. And so if both of you can just look at each other and say, can we just have a day, an hour, a moment, a minute of vulnerability in a safe setting where nobody's feeling any kind of pressure, sexually or otherwise, where we can just drop our walls and be us for a moment? Because you're still the same people that met each other. You're still those same people. It's just all the barriers that you've put up and all the disconnects and getting so caught up in the rest of the world that you forgot about each other. You can rekindle that desire. You can rekindle those dreams. You just have to do the same things you did when you first met.
Powerful, powerful answer. Man, the questions are coming in. Crystal says, if it's just sex for men, are soul ties still developed, even if it was one time? And absolutely, your intention and what you were seeking in the experience doesn't keep a soul tie from developing, because when you bring your body into an experience, you also bring your mind, you also bring your emotions, even if it was just a one night stand. Are you kidding me? Then that would say the only time a soul tie can occur if it's a long term relationship, and that's certainly not the case. It's so interesting. There was a study done on prostitutes, and the study concluded that a lot of them wound up with schizophrenia because they were having sex with so many different people. They took on so many different personalities. And a lot of them dealt with schizophrenia. They dealt with a whole other host of mental issues because they were giving their physical body away. Now, a prostitute, they're only doing it for sex or for the payday, if you will. So it's what we will call a cash flesh connection, very transactional, nothing emotional, nothing relational, yet there is a mental psychological impact that it has on them. So whether a one night stand, serial monogamy, a deep emotional affair that lasted for years, it is quite possible to have a soul tie.
I would even say it's guaranteed in some
Mm,
ways. I would love for someone to just take the moment to, when you get a chance, and I want you to look at physics, because there's a buzzword going around that came from a physics term, and it deals with everything in the universe that comes in contact with something else. It's called quantum entanglement. And
mm,
entanglement became a buzzword for a while, but it's a real thing. When you have two souls that come in intimate contact that share that space, even for moments, there's a piece of you in them and a piece of them in you forever. Forever. And I don't care what religion you look at, the Jews, the even the Native Americans said, when you married someone, that one of the worst things you could ever do is divorce or be apart from them if the circumstances could be fixed, because that you were married to them even in the afterworld. Even in the afterlife, you're still stuck with them. You're going to have to deal with it later. And I think that concept, while it's foreign to us, it is an interesting one, because that actually speaks to what quantum entanglement is about. That there's a piece of you that's bonded with that person forever, and you can't take it back.
mm.
You can't.
Yeah. Here's another question, Jeff, from Kimberly. Why do men still expect respect when, in many situations, the husband has been completely disrespectful to their wives?
I think one of the problems is we don't understand what respect is. In every situation, whether it's rewind, relate, is to go back to something. So spect to see, to take a second look at is what respect actually means in the etymological sense. To take a second look at, you need to respect me. That means you need to take another look at me. Okay. If you're the same person as you were yesterday and you haven't changed and worked on you and become a new you, no one deserves respect. The only reason I need to take a second look at you is if you've grown, if you've changed, if you've become something new. All
Yeah,
right, fellas?
there it is. Sean says, have to say thank you for all that you all do. I'm sure it's exhausting and to constantly answer the same questions and talk all day when you have your own families makes my heart smile to know you all care so much about marriage when it seems like the world is against it. Thank you so much for your big hearts. You know what? We appreciate that, and those type of accolades and comments is what really gives us the fuel to keep on going. So we appreciate that. And if it sounds like we're annoyed from answering the same questions again, it's because we want you to get it. We want it to digest. We want it to marinate in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, in your being. It's just like we're going to give you these detailed instructions. The question is, are you implementing it? It will work if you work it, right? So we want it for you so bad. We're like, why aren't you getting it? Why aren't you doing it? Do the work. We are living testaments and we're still on our journey. We're far from where we want to be, but far from where we used to be. And so it's a result of, at one point, making the decision that we're going to do something. I will tell you, there were many things in other areas of my life that Jeff here has brought into my life, and it was in one ear and right out the other. And as he's talking, I'm like, yeah, my mind is somewhere completely different. And it's just like he was throwing pearls to swine for quite some time until something happened in me and I was wide open to what he was saying, and then was willing to implement specific things in my life that took me on a journey in my own growth path. And it was a result of finally making the decision to say, I'm going to do something. And that's all we want for you. We want
Yeah,
you guys to do something.
the frustration really is in that knowing it doesn't have to be so hard. I keep seeing people saying marriage is hard, but I've watched Hassani and Danielle, and I'm in a world now surrounded by people who are really doing the work. And what I also noticed that hasn't been discussed as much, I know you've probably covered it, Hassani, is we need to detoxify our environments. And what I'm talking about that is some of the people that are whispering in our ears every day aren't helping us. They're always finding something. Oh, girl, I can't believe you're still with him. Some of us are watching shows and listening to music that encourage behaviors that are not what we want. And there has to be a period of detox where everything in your outside world supports your goal for marriage. You can't sit there and say, I want to give up drugs and have heroin needles laying around the table. And so you're watching shows where infidelity is being pushed. You're listening to music where over hypersexualized. You have a friend who's like, I don't know why you don't leave him, and you got all these people and things coming into your life. You need to detoxify yourself because, like, this is garbage in, garbage out. You need to stand guard at the gateway of your mind. Listen, your mind is like coffee. I've said this before. Arsenic and sugar look exactly the same in a bowl. It doesn't matter if your friend puts the arsenic in your coffee in your mind or your enemy puts in sugar, the result is still going to be the same. We need to watch who we're listening to, what they're saying. We need to validate it and vet it and see if they're coming from a place of expertise. And if they're not, detox. Every time we do a detox, we get rid of all the garbage in our house. We throw away the bad groceries. We get rid of the chips and the Twinkies, and they eventually creep back into our lives. But right now, you're vulnerable. You're in pain. You need to detoxify the people in your lives and stop listening to people who do not have what you want. That includes the music you listen to, television programming, books you're reading, all of it. Get rid of it and start putting in messages that are supportive of the goals that you have, the desires that you want to create. And if you don't do that, like I said, that's like walking around in a crack house saying, I don't want to be doing this anymore. Why are you in a crack house?
If I had $1, I would put it at the altar right now because you are preaching, sir. That right there. If I had my bomb, I would blow the bomb horn because that right there, guys, you have an eye gate, an ear gate, a mouth gate. These are gates that allow information to get inside of you that then impact this mind. And you have to become a gatekeeper. And to your point, the music you listen to, the movies and television shows you watch, the people you communicate with, the places you go, you are voluntarily putting yourself in harm's way and then complain about all the triggers and all the struggles that you have in your life. What are you doing to build a wall of protection around yourself? What are you doing to create an environment that will be conducive for your growth as opposed to one that continues to tear you down and tear you apart? It's personal responsibility. It's being willing to do whatever it takes. Jeff, phenomenal, phenomenal answer. Listen, guys, you're
One small
watching.
thing.
Go
One
ahead.
small thing. I don't want to tear people down for the music they listen to, the TV shows they watch alone. What I'm saying is if you're in a toxic place and you're not healthy, a healthy person can walk in front of a donut aisle and not feel the urge to get donuts. But you're not that right now because you're here and you're asking these questions. So it's not judgmental about what you watch or what you listen to. You know, people who aren't living in fear can watch a horror movie. But a child who's constantly afraid might not want to watch that same horror movie. And you have to look at where you're at in your situation and say, what is the most healthy environment I can be in? I'm sorry, I needed to clarify that.
I needed that was a lot. That was a lot. I need a break. Listen, guys, we're going to take a quick break. We're going a little bit over, but we're dedicated to you. So you're watching Ask the Experts. We'll be right back. If you're a man and you have a pulse, then you need to join this program. You're a husband, you're a father, you're a leader. You have the weight of the world on your shoulders. You have to be everything for everyone, but do you know who and how to be for you? You're still in search of your own significance. You're in internal battle with your own vices. You're questioning, do I even know what it means to be a man? I know I'm supposed to be there for others, but what about me? The fact is, you need a model. You need a code to live by, a system of principles to govern your life. You need an internal compass to guide your every decision. You need the 4 securities to build your own kingdom. What you need is the foundry. In short, a foundry is a facility where castings are produced by melting metal, pouring liquid metal into a mold, and then allowing it to solidify. Well, this is where we're testing the metal of men. Foundry is a 12-week men's-only coaching program. It is a brotherhood that will take each man through a purification process of the heart, mind, and soul. We here at Couples Academy promise you that if you give us 12 weeks of your life, you will no longer recognize it. If you care about the improving of your life, your marriage, and your family, register today. That's the Foundry program, guys. Now, listen. I'm reading these comments. I don't have time to read them all, but Jeff, they're giving you so many accolades for such a brilliant unpacking of an answer that you gave. And this is what I want you to get, guys. We come on here every single morning and every single night, and there are times when the information is so amazing. But what you're getting is a rat's nostrils worth in comparison to what you could get if you just made a decision to enter a program like Foundry or Unearth or the Last Chance Weekend or Private Marriage or even some one-on-one sessions. Many of you are clients who are watching right now, so you know, right? And so we say use this show as a part of your daily word to give you what you need to get you through the day and to learn how to take these things that we're sharing and implement them and incorporate them into your life. It's not either or. Either I'm going to do counseling or watch the show. It's both and. And when you take the both and approach, you get everything that you need. Here's another question. How can I encourage my husband to watch the video? Uh-oh. I think something happened to my screen. Are you guys still there?
We're here. That's funny.
I don't know what happened. All right, here we go.
Okay.
I'm sorry. How can we encourage my husband to watch the videos with me? He betrayed me, and I'm the one doing everything, watching videos, reading books, etc. I mean, I probably have a carnal answer, but I was going to say, do you guys have sex? If so, and he wants it, watch a video before. Like if you know you're going to give it to him tonight and he wants it, put that right before it. That'll get him to watch it because he knows what's on the other side of that. Like you have to find out the source of his motivation. What turns him on? Okay, that's what you want, babe. Well, would you mind sitting down?
Are you setting boundaries? Do you have requirements? You know, give him a path, but it's a path, not a.
There it is. So, I mean, whether it be sex, whether it be whatever it is, you have to figure out how to be wise and win him and win his heart back and get him to do things that he may not want to do, but are good for him to do. And I tell you, if my wife wanted my attention, she knows what all she would have to do. And I just gave you that advice. So hopefully that helps. If not that, figure out what it is. And
And I'm gonna be honest, that works anyway. It's always worked, and it's added mystery. And believe it or not, it's not always the result. A lot of times, it's the chase.
This is very true. Couple more questions or comments. Videos are amazing. If you do what they say, okay, it works. Finally, had a conversation with my husband for 20 minutes without arguing. Love it, and I think that speaks to some of the techniques and methodologies that we kind of share on this show. So I'm glad to hear that testimonial. Crystal says, if most times cheating is just sex for men, are soul ties still? Oh, I think I answered that. Yeah, I think I answered that.
I think
Um,
one thing we didn't answer, if most times cheating is just sex for men, I think that is one of the biggest stereotypical misread. That's not my encounter, and I know a lot of guys who are playing games. They try to pretend like that's it, but if you dig deep, it's not just sex. Oh, it's just sex. It's not. It's not ever just sex unless they have like an addiction.
a
Have
lot
you
of
ever
and
have
you're
you ever
right.
seen that it's just sex for any man? Like we see the men when they're crying about losing their wife and all these other things. It's not just sex.
Let's just share and unpack some of the reasons why people wind up in affairs. A lot of and listen, you can call them excuses and justifications. A justification says this is the reason why I did it, and I was just in what I did. We can give you a reason. That doesn't make it right.
It's not a
None of it
justification.
is right, but we're going to give you some reasons why men cheat. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't want you to look at this through a lens of morality. We're giving you reasons why they do it.
It's the
So,
same
and
thing like
there's
the reason why I ran the red light, the reason why I took the right turn. The stop sign is there. You put people in jeopardy. We are not taking away that. What we're saying is I was focused on getting to work on time. The reason why I blew the light. That's a similar example to what he's talking about. It's not we're saying it's right. We're just saying that there is a common thread
yeah.
justification that people try to use. And when it's
Um,
common, that means it's relatable to other people. That means they can feel supported by a group outside of the marriage.
now, keep in mind, affairs typically, unless it's sexual compulsion or some one night stand, affairs typically do not start in the bedroom. They end in the bedroom. So a lot happens prior to that even becoming a reality. Do not assume that every man in this case who has an affair is seeking to have an affair. There's a phenomenal book, the number one requested book on infidelity recovery that exists, in my humble professional opinion. It is entitled Not Just Friends. In this thick book, Not Just Friends, it talks about how overwhelmingly infidelity has transitioned, it has evolved. It has gone from being very transactional to relational. So relationships are formed. There's a familiarity, there's a commonplace kind of connection between people. Clear lines of distinction and boundaries and borders were not established. So it's just a conversation. I'm just having a conversation. That's how it typically starts. And so, you know what? Here I am fussing and fighting with my wife about, in his mind, nothing or major issues. And then I come to work and I just have, I don't know, it's just peaceful there. I get along there. I'm not fussing and fighting and dealing with all these things. And it's just so easy to talk to you. And because it's so easy to talk to you, now I anticipate the conversation. And if I got to work late, if I got to go to the bar to have a couple drinks because I don't want to go home, if I can have any type of distraction from going back into an environment that I feel is going to be toxic, that I feel is going to be destructive, I will do my best to stay away. Because with her, it's easy. And all we were doing was talking, and she understands me, and I can share my opinion. I'm not wrong about everything. I'm not criticized for everything. It's just easy. And so one thing led to another, and it wasn't my intention. And I love my wife, but I was in a weak, vulnerable state, and I made wrong decisions. And I know I shouldn't have been engaging in the conversation, but I couldn't hold back. That's one reason. Some people are looking to escape from their reality. because they're dealing with the hardships and the realities and all the overwhelming responsibilities. And if it's not one thing, it's another. And I just need an escape. Some people are drawn in because of shared common goals and interests. Like, I just want to connect with my spouse. And it seems like we have nothing in common. But with you, man, you like sports. I was trying to get my wife to, like, it could be an incalculable number of reasons. And none of this stuff is right. None of it is right. None of it is ethical. None of it is moral. And so what happens is when you seek to truly understand the reasons why, you will get your answer. But oftentimes, when you're asking your spouse, why did you do it? How could you do it? When they answer you, you shut them down. You don't want to hear it. It doesn't make sense. You refuse to accept it because oftentimes you're looking through a lens of morality. And if you look through a lens of morality to understand their why, it's like you're speaking two different languages here. It's just like I talked about this on another show, how women speak the language of feeling, men speak the language of logic. So you ask a woman what she thinks, she tells you how she feels. You ask a man how he feels, he tells you how they think. You're speaking two different dialects and it's not connecting. Likewise, when you truly want to know where a person was mentally and emotionally in their heart and mind, relationally, in the dynamics of the relationship that prompted the affair, and you're looking through the lens of morals and ethics, you will never understand because there's nothing right about it.
And yeah, I think that's huge. And I want to caution people about being paralyzed by pain. Okay, if you had a major physical injury and got put in the hospital for a few weeks, sitting up, getting up, walking to the bathroom is going to cause you pain because you've been in bed, bedridden for a week. I remember it very, very well how hard it was just to stand up and get my feet up underneath me. It's the same thing in a relationship when you go through a traumatic event like this. But I'm telling you, if you stay in bed, you will never walk again. If you stay away from being vulnerable and trying to connect and trying to create something, it's the people who fight through. It's the people who do the PT, the physical therapy, the relational therapy. It's the people who show up to the appointments and push a little bit harder and go a little bit further. My mentor, for instance, was bedridden for 3 years because of Lyme's disease because they told him he would never walk again. And then one day a friend came over and took him surfing. Made him go, would not leave until he decided to just get to the water, and he struggled to get to the water, but he actually got up on the board. Now he's climbing mountains and riding bikes. He didn't listen to what everybody said about, well, the marriage just won't work. I'm making it marriage now. He didn't listen to them and say, oh, well, we're just going to be stuck in this place of unforgiveness and unhappiness forever. He decided to listen to the positive side of things and start working towards it. And guess what? If you get hurt again, at least you tried. But you will get no further than where you are if you stay stuck where you are. You got to get up and keep moving and keep trying and keep believing and keep aspiring, because that's what's going to rejuvenate the marriage. You need to create a vision together of what this marriage could or should look like. And then the trust is going to come when you see the checklist on that vision together happen. And further and further and further in the rearview mirror, as you move down that road to recovery, you're going to look, and that accident, you can't see it anymore. It's too far behind you.
Excellent point. Excellent point. I almost don't want to go backwards because that was so powerful. But I thought of another reason, why men cheat. Not right. There's, once again, it's not right. But you know what one of the biggest things are? Now, if you remember, for the last 2 days, I've been talking about the biggest complaints that unhappy husbands have about their wives. And I mentioned in there that either you're having sex and your attitude is that you're doing him a favor, or the other issue is there is no sex. And when you're dealing with a man that has a higher sexual libido and there's testosterone, and for him it's not just a want, but it's almost like a need Just like you eat food and drink water and wear clothes and have
It's an
shelter,
appetite.
those are needs for survival. There are sexual, not wants, but needs that a man has. And when there was an ample supply for many of you before I do, and then after I do, it seems like it's come to a screeching halt, if not immediately soon thereafter, because the desirability of women has plummeted while the desirability of men remains high. Now you're dealing with an inequality in the relationship. There's a huge wedge, there's a disconnect sexually. He longs for it. He's demonized and made to feel dirty and bad because he has a desire. He's filthy, he's disgusting. Why is it all about sex? And so therefore, he feels like he's being cheated out of something that he said I do for.
And
And
then
now,
I was just gonna say, and the women and men too, but women are not doing a good job. You know that song "Teach Me How to Love"? There's a
oh
song
yeah,
called "Teach Me How to
music
Love."
soul child, music soul child.
Music Soul Child, "Teach Me How to Love." There are men who need to be taught how to love. Okay, and when you have a child who tries to do something the wrong way, you say, "No, baby, try it this way." You guide them in a direction that gives you the ability to open your heart. But if you don't have that patience to do that, because you can train a man to do the right things, you can absolutely guide him in the right direction because they're going to do whatever it takes to get to the goal. That's what an ambitious person does. They do whatever it takes to get to the goal. And if you say, no, not like this, as far as their mannerisms, the way they talk to you, the way they approach you, where they put their hands, like you said, Asani, like the time, sometimes women are like telling men, hey, don't be like this. You know, every time we go to hug them, we're putting our hands in places that make sometimes them feel uncomfortable. You have to teach them that, hey, this is a better way. Just a touch on the hand can change the game. And so if you're willing to slow down and teach them and guide them in the right way, because the truth of the matter is, and most women have admitted this, they want it too. They want it too. It's just they don't like the way they're being approached for it.
This is
I've
true.
seen it in the sessions. Like, I just don't want it anymore because of the way that it comes about. And it feels like I'm being, it feels dirty to them. So you got to teach these guys.
You're right. You're right. So there's obviously a sexual disconnect. Men want more sex, women want better sex. There's a disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the reason, it's shutting the woman down. Whatever if that is the reason, some women just don't have a desire, and it's just like it is what it is. That's your need. It's not my need. I'm not going to give you what you want. And let me just say another thing, because this happens a lot in relationships because it comes out in the sessions. We've talked about how words are powerful. Let's just pause. Words are powerful. And oftentimes you communicate words that you don't mean, but in your frustration, in your desperation, in your whatever term, word, colloquialism you want to use, in your aggravation, you say things that plant a seed. I'm gonna give you perfect examples. You know what? I ain't giving it to you, so you might as well go out there and find something for yourself, right? You spoke that word. You spoke that word, and
That's a genie's lamp you don't want to open.
you planted a seed. I've heard in many sessions, yeah, well, we talked about fulfilling a fantasy by bringing someone in, but I wasn't serious about it. And
Yep.
because it didn't happen, it planted a seed. Oh, you're open to that? Whatever reason it didn't happen. So maybe you wouldn't mind if a seed was planted, right? A lot of times we use vain words that we do not mean, or we may have meant at one time, but then took it back, but the seed was planted. And now now seeds sometimes produce a harvest. Now, listen, we're talking
Sometimes.
about why men cheat. We're trying to give you an incalculable number. This could literally be a series. And once again, not right. It's absolutely wrong. But what we're doing is we're giving you insight into the thinking of those who do. It's quiet on here. Oh, Derek says, y'all so on it tonight. Y'all so on it. Because we're trying, listen, if we don't keep it real, and if we just tiptoe, tap dance, and pussyfoot around issues and don't give you what is needed, it's not going to help you. And that's why we're willing to take a 30-minute Ask the Experts show and go an hour just to be able to give you the answers to these difficult situations that you need to bring back to your spouse and unpack. And the truth is, sometimes they won't tell you this because you can't handle it, because it's
Facts.
not going to go well. And
Facts.
so,
I mean, everybody's already lying around you, and you guys are lying to each other. You're lying about your emotions. That's why you bite your tongue. You're lying about your feelings, what you really feel inside, the pain, the hurt. Oh, you'll tell them what for. You'll make sure that they hear how bad things are. But you won't tell them how lonely you are right now. There's another side to that anger, and it's loneliness. And you won't communicate that because that requires being vulnerable. It requires you admitting that you miss them. And you're worried about sending the wrong signal. Well, I'm telling you, you're in the same house already. You got kids together already. Send the signal.
yes, this is good. Let me just read some of these. Sean says, that's what I always need, the thinking of a cheater. That helps me so much. Then oh, they're coming in so fast. Then another one says, yes, go on ahead and help us preach. Oh, now they're blowing up. Then someone else says, this is great tonight. Then someone else says, this is real glad I found you wise guys. And I'm like, are we guys
Whoever
who are
pissed
wise,
Jeff
or
off,
are we
read
wise
the next
guys?
one. Read the next one. That one's hysterical. That just made me laugh.
The next one,
Yeah.
whoever pissed Jeff off, thank you. Need a bomb, snap a finger, stop killing your spouse because you are killing you. We are one. Oh my God. I brought up a threesome. Oh, see, oh my God, I brought up a threesome once. It was a friend of mine, but it never happened. I backed out. Then he cheated later. See what I'm saying? I'm telling you, we know this not because we're guessing, not because we read it out of a book. We deal with this every single day. You have to be careful with the things that you say, with the things that you should suggest. And I'm gonna tell you something. When it comes to these open relationships, fulfilling these sexual fantasies, there's a world unto themselves when you step into that realm. And so many couples have come to us and have used the language, we have let the devil into our bedroom and we need help restoring our relationship. You talk
I
about
have
triggers.
never, I have never, and I've encountered a lot of people who played that game in my life. I've never found one single like happy person that did that. Like I've heard about it immediately after that they were happy, but within months their relationship was destroyed. I've never seen it last. Never seen anything around that whole polyamorous lifestyle ever last and turn into real relationships. I see lonely, lonely people, lonely, hurt people after those situations.
And if you've been in that situation, that's why you need to come to Couples Academy, because we have a formula that can help you get to a better place, but it's going to require some work because a lot of things were introduced in. I don't mean to go here, but I'm just going to talk about it. Even on a spiritual tip, I'm not connecting it to what I just said. But if you think about like spiritual warfare and deliverance, in the world of Christianity, if you were ever to go to a deliverance ministry where somebody has been involved in behaviors, whether drugs or alcohol or sex or whatever the case may be, and they go through a deliverance process, oftentimes there's so many spirits that are coming out of them because they've opened themselves up to so many things. And I want you to use that framework for opening up your marriage to so many things. So it takes there's a lot that has to come out because you've allowed so much in. But we want to let you know that you can be healed, you can be delivered, you can be recovered, you can be restored. It is not too late, it is not over. And that, guys, that's why we have Foundry and Unearthed and the Last Chance Weekend and private marriage intensives. Everything that we do is centered around two things: your personal transformation and your marital restoration. You will only get a snippet, a piece, a portion of it. You could watch our shows till Jesus comes back, but it's still not all of it because you're missing a process that is necessary. And on that note, we love you guys. We appreciate you for all that you do in being committed to this particular show. We will see you on Monday for another episode of Ask the Experts, and I'll see you in the morning for another episode of the Couples Academy show. Good night, guys.